The first NFL draft was held in 1936, and the Eagles spent the first ever pick on Heisman-winning halfback Jay Berwanger. He never touched a football in the NFL, turning down a $13,000 a year salary to go work at a rubber company. It's hard to imagine someone doing that today, but there are first-rounders in the modern NFL that ended up doing nothing in the league, just like Jay, and those guys are coming up right after this. Spring is finally here, and that means you need to get your butt outside. Unfortunately, the sun is pretty bright, so you'll want to look good and be energized for whatever outdoor adventure is up next. That's where Factor comes in. With Factor, healthy, delicious meals are delivered right to your door with no prep and no mess. They cut out stressful meal planning and tedious shopping trips, and you know, that whole cooking part? My favorite thing is that these meals are filling and delicious and around 550 calories or less. Stay lean and stay active. Factor now offers 34 different meals per week and 45 plus add-on options like smoothies, juices, and snacks. And with Factor, you get a complete dietary system, whether it's keto, calorie smart, chef's choice, protein plus, vegan or veggie, it's all here and all easy. So after this video, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code 5points50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Again, that's factor75.com from the link below and use code 5points50 to get 50% off your first box. Isaiah Wilson, offensive tackle, Tennessee. In 2020, the Titans were coming off one of the most successful seasons in franchise history. Tennessee had made the fateful decision to bench Marcus Mariota in favor of Ryan Tannehill and rode Derrick Henry to the AFC Championship game. If they could nail the 29th overall pick, they might have turned themselves into a Super Bowl team the following year. That, well, didn't happen. Instead, what they got was a disgruntled tackle that ended up playing 3 offensive snaps for Tennessee before being shown the door. Is that a typo? The fuck? Isaiah Wilson started all but one game in his last 2 seasons as a Georgia Bulldog and threw his hat in the ring for the 2020 draft despite having 2 remaining years of eligibility. The Titans wanted to upgrade the right tackle position, and Wilson seemed like the obvious fit. He might have fit schematically, but he didn't fit in the locker room, and he didn't really fit in the organization. It turns out, like Eddie Lacy in an airline seat, he didn't fit in the NFL whatsoever. Wilson received a citation from the Tennessee State University Police during training camp, and not long after picked up a DUI during the first week of the regular season, prompting the team to shelve their first-round pick until he could sort out his personal life. As the Titans and 2 other teams learned, that wasn't going to happen, and it appears that, barring a comeback, Wilson's career will end with just a single game under his belt. He's now attempting a career as a rapper, a well-known path to success followed by Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. As for Tennessee, they managed to take the only first-round tackle that makes Mekhi Becton look like an Iron Man. Vernon Golston, edge rusher, New York Jets. Vernon Golston is remembered distinctly for a number, the number 0. It's not that Golston played 0 games in New York, it's that the 6th overall pick in the 2008 NFL Draft notched 0 sacks in 45 games as a Jet. And that's pretty bad as someone whose job it was to get sacks. It's so woeful, it's kind of impressive. Golston was a lengthy edge defender out of Ohio State, where he performed admirably with a sack in the 2006 National Championship loss to the Florida Gators. His last 2 years in college, Golston racked up a total of 22.5 sacks. It's like he used them all up. The Jets, despite whiffing on Golston, had a 2-year run in 2009 and 2010 where they made back-to-back trips to the AFC Championship game.
Can't wait!
It's not hard to wonder whether a more efficient use of pick number 6 might have pushed them over the top and gotten them to their first Super Bowl since Joe Namath guaranteed victory over the Colts. Players like Gerard Mayo, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, Aqib Talib, Brandon Albert, and Chris Johnson were all on the board when the Jets took Agent Zero. To make matters worse, Vernon's cousin William Golston became a productive player after being selected in the 4th round of the 2013 draft by Tampa Bay. It goes to show you that the Jets gonna jet. Jimdruckenmiller, QB, San Francisco. He's widely known as the worst player in San Francisco 49ers history. He was supposed to replace Steve Young, who had successfully carried on the legacy of Joe Montana. He didn't come close. Taken with the 26th overall pick in the 1997 draft out of Virginia Tech, 49ers head coach Steve Mariucci believed he could groom Jimdruckenmiller to carry the torch of 49ers success. After a concussion, shocker, knocked Young out of the starting lineup before week 2 in 1997, Mariucci handed the ball to Druckenmiller. The Niners miraculously beat the Rams 15-12, but not because of their rookie QB. The Druck sucked, tossing 3 interceptions and the lone touchdown pass of his career. Druckenmiller played just 2 years in the league, both in San Francisco. In 6 games, he completed just 21 of 52 pass attempts. Not exactly the heir to Montana and Young. The 49ers very easily could have used that pick on a different quarterback, Arizona State QB Jake Plummer, who might have become a star had he been dropped in the 49ers offense rather than being stuck with the Cardinals. R.J. Soward, wide receiver, Jacksonville. R.J. Soward stood drunk on the sideline during a Monday Night Football game in Jacksonville in 2001. He was being lectured by Samuel L. Jackson. The actor was telling him he needed to concentrate on football. Bitch. For the past 10 weeks, Soward had been in a rehab center. This was just about a year and a half after he was the 29th pick of the 2000 NFL Draft by the Jaguars, a team just 1 game short of the Super Bowl. The Jags weren't hurting for depth at wide receiver. They had an outstanding duo between Jimmy Smith and Keenan McCardell, but it was hard to ignore the talent of USC wideout R.J. Soward. Soward was talented on the field, but off of it he had developed a dependence on alcohol that quickly robbed him of his ability and future in the league. His rookie year, he caught 14 passes for 134 yards and a single touchdown. A deep post where he beat the future Hall of Famer Deion Sanders. Then, he never played again. Soward was suspended and suspended again and was quickly out of the league altogether, playing a few years in the CFL with the Toronto Argonauts before leaving football to make a living in a warehouse. Now let's be clear, Soward was an addict, not a bad person, but the NFL didn't see much of a distinction at the time and ordered him to rehab centers that were more disciplinary than they were compassionate, and likely exacerbated his issues. For the Jags, they missed on a pick that could have turned them into champions. Just 1 pick later, their rival, the Tennessee Titans, selected linebacker Keith Bullock, an all-pro who played 11 years in the league. And for our final first-round pick that did nothing in the NFL, Demetrius Underwood, defensive end, Minnesota. Demetrius Underwood may go down as the least productive first-round pick of all time, but he might also be one of the more tragic figures we've seen go at the top of the NFL draft. A 6'6" defensive end out of Michigan State, Underwood impressed teams in his pre-draft workouts and caught the eye of the Minnesota Vikings, a team that owned the 11th and 29th overall pick in the draft. Coming off the Randy Moss pick a year before and the 11th pick that was spent on quarterback Dante Culpepper, the Vikings might have had really separated themselves in the NFC had they nailed 3 straight picks. As John Randall's time with the Vikings drew near an end, the team wanted some extra pass rush and grabbed Underwood. Pick later, the Falcons selected All-Pro defensive end Patrick Kearney, followed by Denver scooping up 5-time Pro Bowl linebacker Al Wilson. Instead, the Vikings landed a player who would never play a snap for them during the regular season, leaving the team in his first training camp, citing a conflict between football and his Christian faith. Despite signing Underwood to a 5-year deal, the Vikings released the rookie first-rounder when he returned to camp in August, making him one of the few top picks to never play a snap with the team that drafted him. Underwood wasn't lazy or stupid. He was mentally ill. After being claimed off of waivers and making the Dolphins roster, Underwood attempted suicide for the first time, was diagnosed as bipolar, and eventually escaped a psychiatric care facility before being released by the Dolphins. Believe it or not, this was not the end of Underwood's NFL career. The Cowboys were convinced that they could work on him based on their success with Alonzo Spellman, who also suffered from bipolar disorder. Dallas moved Underwood inside to defensive tackle, and in 2000 he became an actual contributor, notching the first 4 sacks of his career. Unfortunately, it didn't last. Underwood was admitted into psychiatric care following a second attempt to take his own life. effectively ending his NFL career. It's a more complicated story than merely football, but from a Vikings perspective, it's one of the worst picks they've ever made. Worse than not making a pick at all. At the end of the day, football is a business. This was a team on the brink of a Super Bowl in the late 90s and early 2000s, and they whiffed on a pick that could have put them over the top. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'm 5 Points Vids, and you made it to my next video.